Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network, and you're also watching it. Well, hey, we haven't talked in a while. This is Triple Lutz Report number 482. And, well, I want to talk about Joe Biden. Look, first off, is anybody really surprised about the Biden revelations? The guy is creepy. He's Creepy Joe. He's weird. He's been a buffoon. He's been a total moron, a dummy, just the butt of everybody's jokes. He's been a dupe, a shill for the financial system, for the masters. He's really just been totally a construct of the media. He's totally artificial. He's not real. He doesn't have an authentic bone in his body. And he's creepy. I mean, there are dozens and dozens of pictures and dozens of videos on YouTube showing him sniffing women's hair, kissing them on the lips, massaging their shoulders. I mean, there's everything in there except showing him having sex with women. Look, a Secret Service agent wrote a book a while ago talking about how this guy has female Secret Service agents grossed out because when he was at the Naval Observatory, which is where the vice president lives, he would swim in the nude in front of his female Secret Service escort, and they would just be totally disgusted. The guy's a creep. He certainly appears, by all accounts, to be a pervert, and I've been saying for months, if you watch financialsurvivalnetwork.com, if you listen to my podcast, which you definitely should, just go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. You will see numerous predictions going back 6-8 months saying this guy is never going to be the nominee or the president of the United States. It's just an impossibility. Cannot happen. Not to mention the guy is clearly entering probably mid-stage of dementia. He appears that he could get violent when he's challenged. When people challenge him and question his views, he gets angry, especially the general public. But even the reporters, when he talks to them, he gets angry at them. He's non-responsive to questions. He certainly appears to have major cognitive issues. And this guy is going to run? No, he's been a placeholder. The original strategy for the Democratic PAC was split it up with as many candidates as you can so that nobody will make it to the convention with the requisite number of delegates. And actually, because the primaries have all been suspended, Biden doesn't have that requisite number of delegates. And he's got 1,500 something. Bernie's got 900 something. Look, so initially what happened, they didn't want Bernie to win. So they had Elizabeth Warren in there, Lizzie, Pocahontas, Hiawatha, whatever you want to call her, the fake Indian. And she basically espoused the same policies as Bernie. And she was there to split up the vote. Well, what happened was Bernie started taking a lead and they had to change the strategy. Because understand, the strategy was for no one to have enough delegates, and then the real candidate would come out from behind the curtain. And initially I thought maybe that's going to be Mayor Nanny Mike Bloomberg, but he turned out to be a god-awful candidate, and the establishment had the knives out for him. They didn't want him. So there's somebody else lurking behind the scenes. Many people, Dr. Gerard Lamero, he thinks that it's Michelle Obama. I don't believe it's Michelle Obama, and I'll tell you why. Michelle Obama hated her tenure in the White House. Yeah, she liked the power. She liked going on vacation with all her peeps at taxpayer expense. She was great at that, spending money. I mean, their budget for music in the White House was something like $500,000 a week. They would have like CeeLo Green, all of these contemporary music stars, and Jay-Z that have him and the whole group. So she liked that aspect of it, the outfits, the free clothing, loved all that. But got to understand that Michelle Obama has never been challenged. She's never been in a debate. She's been asked questions only by sympathetic press. She's never made herself available to any press other than the most sympathetic. And the other thing is the Obamas, by all reports, are now worth hundreds of millions of dollars after 2 terms in the White House. And under one leaked thing, they had studied to see how much more they would get doing a second term than if Obama just left after the first term and said, my work is done, and moved on. And they found that it was many multiples of just a 1-term president being a 2-term president in terms of the profit potential once you leave. Well, once Michelle throws her hat in the ring, which, like I said, will never happen, they got to disclose hundreds of millions of dollars in income that they've gotten in book advances, everything else, speeches, all these things. And Barry's been raking in the dough since they left. So she's never going to be the candidate. I've always found it hard to believe that Hillary could be the candidate. I just never thought it was possible because she already lost once. She's in horrid health. She looks terrible by all accounts. And she's never taken responsibility. And the left, the ultra left of the Democratic Party will never vote for her. The Bernie people, they didn't vote for her last time. They're not going to vote for her this time. So I've always contended it would be a Midwestern governor, such as Tim Walz of Minnesota, the governor of Pennsylvania, which is semi-Midwestern, Tom Wolf, or, hey, who knows, perhaps Evers from Wisconsin. There's a few people that are possible. I never believed that it would be Gretchen Whitmer. It's just a bridge too far. We'll talk more about the Ava Braun of Michigan later in this show. So I don't know who it's going to be. It could very well be Hillary. I just don't think that the party's going to put her up. So basically they got no one. They would like to go with Joe. If he wasn't non-compos mentis Joe, they'd probably go with him and just lose. They're never going to go with Bernie. No, because Bernie would then become the putative head of the Democratic Party, and he would be able to upstage all the Obama plants and the Clinton plants and put his own people in charge. And that's why the establishment rallied. So going back to what happened, originally the intent was nobody has enough delegates, and the power brokers of the party would install their candidate. And their candidate has to be somebody who isn't so far left and that could never actually win in the primaries. So they put him in the last minute and then hope for the best. Like I say, I don't know who that person is. I've given a lot of thought about it. Like Hillary could never win the primaries now. Michelle Obama could have won the primaries, but they didn't want her in there for some reason. So my feeling is she's not going to be the one. But I don't know who it's going to be. Look, I was ahead of this story, ahead of everyone. I predicted for months that Biden would never be the nominee. He's not going to be. I can't believe it's going to be Andy Cuomo. I just don't believe it. Especially now, and we'll talk more about some of the blunders he's made as governor. But going back, this guy, he had a questionable payoff from the Farkas family when he was HUD director, when he was secretary of HUD. And he had a major role in the mortgage meltdown. He was all in favor of making mortgages, and he set up HUD to make mortgages to people who couldn't afford to own homes. And this has been forgotten for now, but no doubt it would come out in an election. The other thing is, after 9/11, he made a snarky comment about Governor Pataki, There was a lot of snark that guy was due. He single-handedly destroyed the Republican Party of New York, but he basically said that he held Giuliani's coat as Giuliani took charge after 9/11. I mean, it was unfair. They had a partnership. These two guys hated each other, Pataki and Giuliani, but you know what? They put their differences aside to help heal the city and get through 9/11. So when you're looking at that, when you look at all these things, Cuomo's just not, he's not the right one. He's got a big mouth. They'll be playing nonstop his quote that America was never that great. And he keeps making comments. The botch of the handling of the coronavirus in New York is solely in his lap, but we're going to talk more about that later. So one thing I want to do a special note to is Jimmy Dore, the Jimmy Dore Show, a comedian and political pundit, Krystal, who's in the Rising on the Hill internet TV show, and this guy, Cenk Uygur. They all were Bernie supporters. They all believed in Bernie, and they're dupes. They're fools. They're useless idiots. Maybe they're useful to the Democratic Party, but let me tell you why. Go back to 2016. Bernie is chosen to run against Hillary. And why was he chosen? Well, it's a simple matter. He was chosen because his views are so far left, he would make Hillary look like a centrist. Number two, with him going back and forth with Hillary, Hillary wouldn't have to address all of Trump's allegations and could ignore Trump during the nomination period, during the primaries for the Democratic Party. And he was strictly a straw man. He was put there never believing he could win. But here's what happened. Hillary was a horrible candidate. She really just never rose to the occasion. Bad speaker, bad laugh, and no sense of humor, and just a really dislikable candidate to a large swath of the population. I know you can say that she won the popular vote. Who knows if she did or not? We don't really know with California, New York, all these meccas of voter fraud. Who knows? But let's assume that she did. She still alienated Clinton country. Look, West Virginia was owned by the Clintons. They were Clinton people. And what does she do? She says, we're going to close down the coal mines and put the miners out of work. And then in the Midwest, she alienated those people. The Democrats cannot win a presidential election without the blue wall in the Midwest. And that's Wisconsin, that's Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota, Iowa. Iowa's not a must, but it had been trending Democratic in a number of elections before. They just could not win Ohio, and Trump took all these states. And now to put Hillary back in there, just cannot win. But as an aside, Hillary just can't win the Midwest back, which is another reason they won't put her there. But Jimmy Dore and Krystal and Cenk Uygur, you are fools, you are dupes, you are stupid, you have no idea of the way the political system really works. You think that the people choose who they want. So getting back to Bernie, he was a straw man in 2016, but he was like the prize fighter who takes money to fix a fight. And even though he's taken money from the mob and he knows that he will be executed if he wins the fight, he realizes his opponent is so weak that he could still win the fight without barely trying, and he just decides not to take the fall. That was Bernie in 2016. And as a result, he started taking on Hillary. He realized how weak she was, and he saw that he somehow was connecting with the younger progressives with all of his pie in the sky free stuff, free college, free medicine, free medical care, all these things. And all of a sudden, he said, I could win this thing. I could win it. Well, wrong, Bernie, because then the party interceded. They rigged the primaries. We know they did. Hell, they gave him Donna Brazile. She gave Hillary the answers to the questions of the debate on CNN. So Bernie was never going to win, and he never really fought to win. Look, the indication that he was totally in the tank for the party was during that debate when somebody asked a question about Hillary's email server. And he says, enough of her stupid email server. It doesn't make any difference. Enough of damn email server. I don't want to hear about it. And that was the end of it. Now look, if you're in a campaign to win it, you do everything you can to win. Now, I'm not saying that you have to fight dirty, but it sure doesn't hurt to fight dirty, does it? But you use every advantage, and that's a legitimate issue that he could have used to hammer Hillary with. All of her dishonesty, all of the scandals over her career, going back to the cattle futures where she made $100,000 when Bill was either the Attorney General of Arkansas or the governor, I don't remember which, it doesn't matter, all the way up to present, Travelgate. You just had a wealth of scandals, and then all of these things. He never once picked up on any of them, and that's not the way a real candidate fights to win an election, especially when things appear to be that close. So he was picked as a loser, he stayed a loser, and only when he thought he had a chance of winning did he really start fighting. But Bernie is not a winner. He doesn't engage in political contests to win. He engages to complain and to make a point, but it's never about winning with Bernie. He is a loser. So when we fast forward to 2020, we already got a taste of Bernie's losership, of his losing, of his desire to lose, and of his lack of political skills. And in 2020, everything he could possibly do to lose the nomination, he did. Again, he wouldn't talk about Joe Biden's compromised mental capacities, his cognitive skills. He wouldn't even mention them. They were totally verboten. He wouldn't talk about Hunter Biden. He wouldn't talk about the decades of corruption of the Biden family, how all members of the Biden family have cashed in on Joe's political connections, basically. And none of that. All that was off the table. And those are the things that you use to get advantages over your opponent. You don't hold back. You don't keep your powder dry unless you have a strategic reason for doing it. You never take any issue off the table when you are in a political fight for your life, which tells me that Bernie is not a fighter, that he's in the can. But because the competition, again, was so weak, all the players were so weak, Bernie stood out. You know, it's that old saying, in a land full of blind men, the one-eyed man is king. And Bernie was the one-eyed man in the field. So once he started getting out ahead and could actually win the nomination, which was, I'm sure, a shock to him and nothing that he really wanted, because Bernie did not want to be president, because if he did, he'd fight for it, and he never fought. And when people would make disparaging comments about Biden within his campaign, he would chasten them, and he would criticize his own supporters for standing up for him. That's not the sign of a winner, and that's not the sign of somebody who wants to win. And then his whole socialist philosophy. So a Jimmy Dore looks at it and says, oh, I'm a socialist. Bernie's a socialist. I support Bernie. And he gets duped again. It wasn't enough in 2016 that he got duped, but he gets duped again in 2020. The same with Krystal Ball. Oh, Medicare for all. It's all going to be great. It's all going to work wonderfully because the government delivers your mail so well the government puts people in jail so well. It does such a great job with our judicial system. The only thing the government does half right is the military. We won't even talk about the corruption there in the military industrial complex, how we get scammed out of trillions, but at least they can drop a bomb when they're called upon to do it. You know, the post office is on the verge of total exhaustion, collapse. Every government program is failing at this point. They could barely get the unemployment checks out. All these things, just one after the other, pure, simple failure. And that is what government programs do. So to think that the government can take over Medicare and probably, they've got Medicare now, but actually make Medicare the payer of choice, and you're going to have a good outcome is totally naive. They can't do it. You'll have doctors, we'll be like England. Just look at England, the way it happens. Now look, I don't say our system's perfect. Most of what's messed up about our system is the government's intervention in it. It makes it extremely costly, unfair, and different levels of care for different socioeconomic levels. Always have that, always will. But the current system assures that. The current system is run by the insurance companies and the big pharma. And the issue now is the government's policies have brought us where we are now. And now you're expecting the government to actually solve the problem that they created, and their solutions are going to be worse than the problem. Anyway, getting back to this, this guy Cenk Uygur, the Young Turk. The Young Turk, does that mean that he's in favor of the Armenian genocide? Because that's what they called those guys who committed genocide against the Armenians in the early part of the 20th century. They were the Young Turks. And I don't see why the media lets them go with a title like that. But he is a fool. He ran for Congress. He didn't even have a chance. Nobody takes him seriously. You watch his meltdowns. These people are useless idiots because their party, the Democratic Party, they're just helping to bring it down. I have no understanding or respect for these people, Jimmy Dore, Krystal, and Cenk Uygur, because they're Bernie supporters, but they have no critical analysis. But this goes to what happened with the Democratic Party anyways. We had 25, 30 candidates. The media, the Democratic media, treated every candidate as if they were a real, serious candidate, except the ones who really were serious, like Tulsi Gabbard. Her, they marginalized. Anyone who is a threat to the existing orthodoxy, to the existing elite establishment of the Democratic Party, they were marginalized. But all the other candidates, like Kamala Harris, like Cory Booker, Inslee, you name it, Pocahontas, they were all treated as if they were real candidates. And they weren't. They were false candidates. Mayor Pete Buttigieg, he was never going to win it. And the media tried to make it. So the media tries to make political campaigns look like horse races. And at one point, well, Pete Buttigieg is coming out on the outside corner trying to take the lead. Oh, he's fading now. Well, Pete Buttigieg is not a real candidate. His candidate, I assure you, was financed by the elites as a spoiler. Mayor Bloomberg, who I thought initially could have a chance, even though he had many, many weaknesses in his past and his background, he really turned out to be the worst candidate ever. But that's not a surprise. His first election cost him $67 a vote. Second election, I don't remember the exact cost, but I remember the third election he almost lost, cost him $107 a vote. So if you carry that math out, he would have spent $6 billion to win, except that he just has zero charisma, zero appeal. So that's it for that. Just want you to keep track of this. Just want you to be aware that this is a complete and utter fraud. that there weren't really 18 or 25 candidates. There were only one or two. They all fizzled. And now we're left with Joe Biden, and he will not be the candidate. You will see. I always said he would have a medical issue, and that's why they would replace him. But now he's got a Me Too issue, which certainly is no surprise. And that is just destroying the party, because now the very same people who were Me Tooers all along are now saying, well, Joe is a good guy. He would never do anything like that. They're not saying that the women need to be believed. There's multiple accusers of Biden. Doesn't matter. He's not going to be the one. It's over for him. And it's a combination of, hey, if he had a couple of brain cells working, he could have confronted the media, stood up for himself and said, I would never do anything like that. And they would believe him, and then we'd move on. But he's so fragmented, and it's so hard for him to express complete thoughts and sentences that he can't even properly deny the whole thing. So you'll see that this is just going to, it's just going to go become a major you-know-what show, a cluster you-know-what. And the Bernie people are never going to vote for whomever the elites wind up choosing to take on the nomination. And it's almost like Cuomo has to be the one, but he's not going to be because he's got so many weaknesses. So let's talk about the coronavirus scam. The virus is real. The disease is real. It's serious if you are a member of the vulnerable population. In close to 7,000 cases studied by New York State, they found that 99.2% of the people who died had additional comorbidities, whether they're diabetes, COPD, asthma, a whole number of things, obesity. There's a lot of things, blood ailments that could cause you to expire before your time. Many of the people were elderly. We know that. There were younger people too, compromised immune systems. If a person has AIDS, you don't even know that they have AIDS because they're protected by law and their health issues cannot be disclosed. So I'm not saying that the disease itself was a scam. Obviously, the death toll is higher than it would normally be. We've seen numerous states where the death tolls have risen over normal. One thing we do know is that the CDC changed all the codes and was encouraging doctors to write on death certificates that it's COVID-19. And then the hospitals, the medical providers actually had incentives from the federal government to classify deaths as COVID-19 caused. So right now it's 65,000 or so deaths. We don't really know how many of them were really COVID-19. I'll assume that it's 3/4 or 2/3, probably a good number. Now, we go back to the Imperial College in England, and 6-7 weeks ago, originally they had called for 2.2 million deaths in the US, 550,000 in the UK. And they changed the model. They said the model's wrong. And this was 6-7 weeks ago. They said in the UK, 20,000 deaths. Half of them, up to 20,000 deaths, half of them were people who were going to die anyway because they were in poor health. Now, if they're correct about that, what we will see in the states like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, where death rates went way up, I think Illinois also, we will see them normalize over the next year within 12 months because those people were going to pass away anyway. One interesting thing is that deaths as a nation are way down a couple, 2-3%, like 50 some odd thousand people die per day, I guess it is, per month. I don't remember. I just remember the 50 some odd thousand. And the number of deaths, I think it's actually per month, excuse me. It's actually per month that 56,000 people, 50 to 60,000 die. And those numbers are down below normal for the first 3 months of the year, 4 months of the year. So if I'm correct, you will see the states where it had abnormally high death rates, way, way above normal, will normalize. So this gets us to the next thing. So Elon Musk said it, and he said it really well, that, this is fascism, that confining people to their homes is nothing less than house arrest. And the overreaction to coronavirus is just monumental. Why not safeguard the most vulnerable, those people in nursing homes? In some states like New Jersey, New York, and others, Washington State, 30-40% of the total deaths took place in nursing homes. And it's not hard to understand why in New York it happened, because in New York, the state health commissioner, who is a moron and, I would aver, almost a murderer, ordered, and Cuomo went along with this, which is why he will never be president, ordered that COVID-19 patients not be denied entry to nursing homes, whether they were prepared to deal with such patients or not. And then you had mass deaths take place in these nursing homes that totally could have been avoided. Cuomo and his health commissioner, I think they call it the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, are clearly murderers in the most abstract way. They didn't go out intentionally, but they were reckless. It's above gross negligence. It's a horrible, horrible thing. I can't believe that it happened. I'm sickened by it. And these are the people you're supposed to be protecting. So by trying to protect all the healthy people from the sick people, you wound up doing in the sick people. It makes absolutely no sense. And for that, I think it's unforgivable. And they're complicit at the very least. Cuomo, and this happened in New Jersey, happened in other states. This is disgrace. You know that the people in the nursing homes are the most vulnerable because they're frail oftentimes. They've got comorbidities. And what do? You send COVID-19 patients back from the hospital when they're still contagious, and you know there's no way the nursing homes can contain it. And then the nursing homes are being threatened by the Cuomo administration in New York that they're going to take their licenses away for letting all these people die that they were ordered to let die effectively. It's awful. So let's look at what's happening in the states. Well, depending upon your point of view, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is either the Ava Braun of Michigan or she's the Comrade Bill de Blasio. The woman is fighting her own people. There's petitions to take her out. They're doing their best to get rid of her. And she keeps, she won't let you plant stuff on your own property. You can't buy seeds at a nursery. You can't buy seedlings. Can't buy landscaping stuff, trees. You're not allowed to do that. You can't go to visit a relative in the state. But out of state, you can. If you're coming from Illinois, you can visit somebody. You can't go from your winter home to your summer home in the Upper Peninsula. All these things are making her extremely unpopular and is going to cost the Democrats Michigan in November, almost certainly. Everyone despises her. So looking at Fauci, he's a deep stater. Just go look at the videos out there about him. And Dr. Birx, I don't know what she is. So my hat's off to Elon Musk. He's my new libertarian hero for calling them out. And look, this is the biggest failure of the Trump administration. That's the ironic part. And he'll never get credit for it because the economy was going to crash. It's the perfect opportunity to let it crash and then reset it. We're going into massive amounts of debt. I'm not even going to get into that. But, we had the greatest economy of all time, according to Trump, which we didn't. But, hey, let him have his due. Employment was looking good. There were indicators looking up. Debt was always out of control, even more so now. But now you can't blame it on him. It was the COVID-19 virus. That's why the economy failed. It had nothing to do with Trump's economic leadership. And you can't call me a Trumper, but I'm not a never Trumper. I consider myself a realist. I said I liked certain things that he did, but in terms of handling the economy, taking on the Congress, and really asserting his will, He never did it. And this is the natural result of it. So whether it's intentional or not, you can decide. But, Trump, he can just say, I was following the doctor's orders, and therefore don't blame me. So, look, there's a saying, if war is far too important to be left to the generals, then certainly pandemics are way too critical to civilization to be left to the doctors. And that's all I have to say on that topic. Congrats to Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota. She resisted the shutdown. And you know what? It's no worse. The results are no worse in South Dakota, adjusted for population density and population, than in any other state. So clearly she did right. And hey, Governor Kemp of Georgia, thank you so much. I plan to visit your good state next weekend. I'm going out to dinner. I'm going to get a haircut. I'm going to get a massage. And, a lot of you out there suggested I talked about getting a tattoo. I'd never do it. But if I was going to get one, AU, the symbol for gold, the atomic symbol on the periodic table chart of elements, that would be my tattoo in gold. But I'm never going to do it. I mean, I'm 62. I haven't gotten one yet. And I'm past my midlife crisis, thank God. I do have a convertible, so there is a holdover from it. But I would never, ever get a tattoo. But if I were, those of you who suggested AU, for sure. And the New York Times. So one other point I want to make, and this goes in the category of just desserts. So the New York Times and the entire leftist media have been anti-capitalist since the 60s. And believe me, they're not altogether wrong. I mean, I abhor the military-industrial complex that has just raped us and got us into meaningless, unwinnable, unendable wars, unending warfare, the welfare warfare state. It's alive and well. So I don't disagree with them on a lot of points, but it's not capitalism that caused this. It's actually the opposite of capitalism that did. So when we look at this, when we look at it really, really closely, they panicked the world, the country, the media into forcing these governors and the president into these lockdowns and shutting down the global economy. And what's the net result? Well, guess what? In 3 weeks, they start seeing massive cancellations of ad spends, massive cancellation of advertising revenue, and they did it to themselves. That's the beauty. It was self-immolation of the media by the media. When you think about it, because you fight capitalism, you finally got your wish, you shut down the global economy, now we can go green, the pollution's gone, and the Delta smelt is safe, all these things. But what did you do? You killed your own business model. And now you see they're trying to nickel and dime you on the web, trying to get you to sign up for their sites and putting up paywalls right and left. It's too late, guys. You destroyed it, because what made the media great, what made them profitable, what enabled them to survive since the founding of the Republic was capitalism, is the ability to turn a profit, provide a service, in this case, information, and an outlet for your advertisers, for your clients to actually sell their goods and services. And then you killed it. And you killed your own business model. All of a sudden, they realized, you know what? We're not just a socialist entity. We're actually part of the capitalist system. Hopefully, they've realized it. I'm not sure that they have. You tell me what you think. Anyways, make sure you like, share, subscribe this video, this podcast. It really helps me a lot when you do it. And really, I love doing this. I'm going to be doing it till the end, till I take my last breath. And hopefully it won't be a last breath that's due to COVID-19. I rather doubt it. In Palm Beach County, where I live in Florida, the day before yesterday, they had a whopping 14 cases of COVID-19 after increased testing. So what does that tell you? It tells me a lot. It tells me that, you know what? Your odds of getting it at this point, very, very low. Most of the people being treated now, picture the medical COVID-19 as a pipeline. Most of these people contracted the disease a week to 2 weeks ago who are going to the hospital now, reporting it, and who are dying, might even be longer than that. That's it for now. Make sure you go to my site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for a free newsletter. If you like this, then like it. Please put those likes, comments. I'm trying to answer all your comments, but there's so many of them coming in on all my videos. It's really difficult, but I will do my best to answer this. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.